Good night. It is 23:30 p.m. on Sunday the 25th of June 2023. I've been recording a lot because relatives are coming. In fact, she's leaving Bristol at 5 a.m. so she thinks it'll take her 5 hours to drive to Heacham, but maybe longer. She's got children with her, twin grandchildren and a daughter, and they're staying in a caravan near me. So I'm trying to get ahead of myself. So I'm going to be doing chapter 4. I don't know if my eyes will take going on to the next one, but definitely Know Your Enemy, chapter 4 of the RITE by Matt Baglio, The Making of a Modern Exorcist. And it's so hot. I've got the window still open. It's really, really hot here. There's no breeze, absolutely nothing. So anyway, I'll just begin with a small prayer, as I always do. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. A prayer to my guardian angel. Angel of God, my guardian dear, to whom his love commits me here, ever this night be at my side, to guard, to rule, and guide. Amen. Holy Michael, Archangel, defend me in this day of battle. Be my safeguard against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, I humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust down to hell Satan and all the wicked evil spirits who wander through the world for the ruin of souls. Amen. It's rather appropriate. The title here is Know Your Enemy. So we will begin chapter 4. And Father Jose Antonio Forte, interview with an exorcist. He's written this at the beginning of the chapter. Know Your Enemy. If God the Father Almighty, the creator of the ordered and good world, cares for all his creatures, why does evil exist? To this question, as pressing as it is unavoidable, and as painful as it is mysterious, no quick answer will suffice. Only Christian faith, as a whole, constitutes the answer to this question. The goodness of creation, the drama of sin, and the patient love of God, who comes to meet man by his covenants, the redemptive incarnation of his Son, his gift of the Spirit, his gathering of the Church, the power of the sacraments, and his call to a blessed life, to which free creatures are invited to consent in advance, but from which, by terrible mystery, they can also turn away in advance. There is not a single aspect of the Christian message that is not in part an answer to the question of evil. Well, that's from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, 309. But the interview with Father Jose Antonio Forte is this little piece. The capacity to love has been annihilated from the psychology of a demon, a fallen angel. A demon knows but does not love. The pleasure is achieved in doing an evil act is the same as that which a human being feels when he gets revenge on an enemy. It is a pleasure filled with hate. Yeah, we all come close to that sometimes, but I wouldn't say it always verges on hate, but annoyance. Anyway, we're now into chapter 4, Know Your Enemy. The idea of the devil has evolved over time, primarily as a way to explain the existence of evil in a world created by an all-powerful and loving God. The word devil comes from the Greek diabolos, which means adversary, slanderer, opposer. When the Hebrew Bible was translated in 200 BCE into Greek, known as the Septuagint version, the Greeks commonly used this word in the place of the Hebrew word Satan, S-A-T-A-N, which means accuser. In the Old Testament, which was written between 1000 and 100 BCE, the devil is only mentioned a few times, and even then he is far from a coherent personified being. Some theologians, such as Thomas Aquinas, have speculated that this is because Moses was addressing uncultured people and did not want to promote any beliefs that might tempt them to worship false idols, which they did when he was up the mountain too long. They did. Other theologians have suggested that the lack of a coherent demonology in the Old Testament might be because the Israelites had a strict law in place that prohibited magic. They weren't allowed to do magic. Satan's most prominent appearance is in the book of Job, but as some scholars have pointed out, here his name is really just a title. He still has access to the heavenly court and appears to be acting as God's agent, a kind of prosecuting attorney. In this role, he convinces God to give him the power to torment Job, to test Job's loyalty, Job 1, 6-12. In the New Testament, however, the devil plays a much bigger role. At the time of Christ's coming, thanks to original sin, the whole world lies under the power of the evil one. 1 John 5:19. To heal this rift, God sends his only Son. The Synoptic Gospels address this concept directly and repeatedly. The Son of God was revealed for this purpose, to destroy the works of the devil. 1 John 3, verse 8. The New Testament is full of the battles that these two sides wage. Satan tempts Christ directly in the desert. Matthew 4, 1-11. Mark 1, verse 13. Luke 4, 1-13. And attacks him indirectly through his followers by temptation. Matthew 13:19. By inflicting bodily harm. Luke 13:11. And by possession. Mark 1:23-28. Jesus teaches his disciples the Lord's Prayer and confronts the devil head on by performing exorcisms. The belief in spirits or intermediaries between God and man exists in just about every religion. The Assyrians, for instance, had numerous books written on clay tablets dedicated to incantations and conjurations to ward off evil spirits. According to the Greeks, demons or daimones were thought to be either good or evil. Socrates, for instance, famously credited a daemon as being the source of his inspiration. For Catholics, the belief in angels is an article of faith based on divine revelation and the teachings of the Church. The Apostles' Creed professes that God is creator of heaven and earth. The Nicene Creed makes it explicit that this profession includes all that is seen and unseen. The creation of the angels is affirmed in numerous passages of the Bible. St. Paul writes to the Colossians, "For in him, Christ, all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, or rulers or powers, all things have been created through him and for him." Colossians 1:16. The angels occupy a natural order or hierarchy of beings whose purpose is to reflect the glory of God. A 13th century theologian, Thomas Aquinas, explains in Summa Theologia, his great tome on angels, there must be some incorporeal creatures, for what is principally intended by God in creatures is good, and this consists in assimilation to God himself. Hence, the perfection of the universe requires that there should be intellectual creatures. To many theologians, it seems only natural to believe in higher intelligence superior to our own, especially when one considers the ordered nature and varying degrees of intelligence that exist in the world, from single-cell organisms right up to man. It would be most extraordinary if man formed the last link, writes P.I.E. Raymond Regami, O.P. The Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that Satan was a good angel, created by God. The devil and the other demons were indeed created naturally good by God, but they became evil by their own doing. As an expression of his love, God created the angels with free will, so that they could love him back and render themselves similar to God, who is love. 1 John 4:16. In simple terms, according to the Christian tradition, love is a metaphysical necessity for created beings, since it is only through love that such beings can realize their full potential. And since love not freely given is not really love at all, this meant that the angels, along with man, needed to have the ability to choose. However, I hate these flying flies. They're coming in the window. They feel like spiders. Sorry about that. Oh, it was... Sorry, that's really put me off now. I've lost my place. Oh. So, and since love is not freely given, is not really love at all. This meant that the angels, along with man, needed to have the ability to choose. However, God knew that once he gave this freedom, it could be used either for evil or for good. By creating the pure spirits as free beings, God in his providence could not but foresee also the possibility of the angels' sin, said Pope John Paul II. After their creation, God tested the angels before admitting them to the beatific vision, the direct experience of God in heaven. Many angels remained faithful to God, while a smaller number, led by Satan, rebelled, choosing to place themselves before God. After their sin, the angels were immediately stripped of their everlasting grace and condemned to an eternal punishment. Matthew 25:46. Theologians call this punishment the pain of loss. The fallen angels were cut off from the only source that could have given them happiness, God. In this hell, the demons are forever tormented and remain obstinate in their hate, a hate that has deformed their very nature. According to Christian tradition, Satan was the principal fallen angel, the brightest and most perfect of all God's creatures. The Bible makes it clear that he holds a higher rank than the other fallen angels, the devil and his angels. Matthew 25:41. The ruler of the demons, Luke 11:15. The dragon and his angels, Revelation 12:7-9. Ever since Origen attributed the fall to pride, Satan's name has been interchangeable with Lucifer. The name, taken from a verse in Isaiah, is used metaphorically to describe the king of Babylon. How art thou fallen from heaven, Lucifer, son of dawn? How are you cut down to the ground, you who laid nations low? You said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. Isaiah 14:12-13. Some theologians have argued against this association. Indeed, some exorcists, like Father Amorth, say that Lucifer and Satan are two distinct demons. Despite this, however, the tradition of associating Lucifer with the devil continues, even as the Catholic Church maintains that the name Lucifer symbolizes the state from which the devil has fallen and is not a proper name. After the angels fell, God created the material world, including the first humans. When this happened, Satan turned his rage on mankind, and as described by John Paul II, transplanted into man the insubordination, rivalry, and opposition to God, which had become the motivation for his existence. The book of Genesis relates how Satan taking the form of a serpent, tempted Adam and Eve to sin. As a result of this sin, and humanity's turning its back on God, Satan has been given some degree of dominion over man. In the Bible, he is called the ruler of this world, John 12:31, and the God of this world, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 4. In the early days of the church, the name of angels caused some confusion. Writing in the 2nd century, Justin Martyr thought that fallen angels had denser bodies than the good angels, and that they actually ate a special kind of food, Psalm 78:25, Psalm 105:40. The word angel is also deceiving, deriving from the Hebrew malak, or the Greek angelos. It signifies a messenger or envoy, which indicates more of a function than a nature. Today, the Church teaches that angels are incorporeal spiritual beings. St. Augustine says, "Angel is the name of their office, not of their nature. If you seek the name of their nature, it is spirit. If you seek the name of their office, it is angel, from what they are, spirit, from what they do, angel." There has been, sorry, I have a tickle. So annoying. Much speculation over the years about what might constitute the nature of a pure spirit, and while his writings on the subject are not a part of official church doctrine, a majority of Catholic theologians follow the teachings of Thomas Aquinas, also known as the Angelic Doctor. Aquinas explains that pure spirits are not composed of matter and form, but of essence and existence, act and potentiality. When the early church fathers fell short, Aquinas suggests was not according enough importance to intelligence. Because of their holy spiritual nature, angels are complete beings and occupy the first and highest place in the scale of created things, nearer to the likeness of God, who is pure spirit, rather than man, who is a mix of the spiritual soul and material body. Every angel is a distinct being endowed with intellect and free will. However, as Aquinas explains, this does not mean that the angels are composed only of intellect, but rather that their knowledge is derived from the intellect compared to a human soul that attains knowledge through both the intellect and senses. As theologian A. M. Lepisier notes, an angel possesses such penetration that he is able at one glance to take in the whole field of science, laying open to his perception, just as we, at a glance, can take in the entire field of vision lying exposed to our eyes. For the ministry of an exorcist, perhaps the most important distinction that Aquinas makes is that since angels or demons do not occupy space, therefore they cannot be physically present in a place like a person can. In this way, they are not anywhere. Instead, when a demon is alleged to move an object, slam a door for instance, or slide a chair across a room, the demon is acting on that object. Their being immaterial means that angels do not move from point A to B by any kind of locomotion, but instead suddenly shift their activity from one point or place to a different one. Some theologians have likened this movement to the human mind, which can instantly transfer thoughts over long distances or onto random objects. Since the Church teaches that God never rejects his creatures, even when they use his gifts for evil means, the devil still retains his former angelic stature and powers. As St. Augustine established, though, God does not give Satan a free hand. Otherwise, no man would be left alive. That means he'd kill us all then. Theologians stipulate that the devil and the fallen angels are limited in their actions in two main ways: by the limits of their nature as created beings and by the will of God. I'm just going to stop for a moment because I can feel these flying creatures and I am very hot, but I'd rather stay hot and cover myself back up, even though it's too hot to be covered up. I'm going to, because I'm going to be distracted by the flies coming on my arms and everything. I should be covered anyway, but I was far too hot. I couldn't bear being covered up, but I'm going to be covered up to stop them tickling my arms, and I want to swat them like flies. Well, they are sort of flies. I don't know what they are. They look like, not quite looking like mosquitoes, but something similar. But it's just they're coming in the open window, you see. So it's now got a headline anyway. The next heading is Limits of the Devil based on his nature. The Catholic Church teaches that no matter how superior he is to humans, the devil is still a finite creature. He cannot, for example, perform true miracles because by definition, a miracle is something that surpasses the power of all created nature. To perform a miracle requires supernatural power, and Satan has only preternatural power. He can, however, create the appearance of a miracle, since his powers allow him to surpass the limits of human abilities. The devil is also limited in his ability to know the secrets of the inner heart, a field strictly open to God, who is all-knowing, say the theologians. However, according to exorcists, the devil can tell what we are thinking by using his superior powers of observation, just as a physician might glean some information about a man's health by checking his pulse. The devil cannot foresee the future, say exorcists. He can, however, fake the appearance of psychic ability by accurately predicting what will happen based on his knowledge of human nature and the powers he has as a spirit, which he does. He has higher powers than us, unfortunately. The next title, Limits of the Devil, based on God's will. The second limitation on the devil's power comes from God's will. In the Christian tradition, an important distinction is made between the devil's status as a lower being created by God and his false reputation as God of evil, a view held by many satanic cults. As a result, the Catholic Church emphasizes that even though the devil, because of his angelic stature, has more power than humans, he can do nothing unless God allows it. The book of Job attests to the fact that God can restrain the devil. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well, all that he has is in your power, only do not stretch out your hand against him." Job 1:13. In other words, he wasn't allowed to cause his death, anything but. Many have asked, why would God allow the devil to harm us? While this question is not easy to answer, Catholic theologians such as Thomas Aquinas have tried to show that ultimately God permits the devil to act in order to turn evil to good. Typically, the devil is permitted to act in ways broken down by exorcists into two categories, ordinary and extraordinary. The next title, Ordinary Activity of the Devil. The ordinary activity of the devil is temptation. Temptation is essentially nothing more than an attraction to commit a sin. In order to sin, we first have to realize that whatever act we are committing is a moral evil. Otherwise, we would be guilty of only ignorance, not sin. Excuse me. St. Paul says in the letter to the Romans, "I do not understand my own actions, for I do not do what I want, but I do the very thing I hate. Now, if I do what I do not want, I agree that the law is good, but in fact it is no longer that I do it, but sin that dwells within me. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. For I do not the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do." Romans 7:15-23. It is in this capacity of tempting us to go against the good of our nature that exorcists assert the devil is most active. However, theologians are quick to point out that it would be a mistake to assume that all temptations come from the devil. As Thomas Aquinas says, The devil is not the cause of every sin, for all sins are not committed at the devil's instigation, but some are due to the free will and the corruption of the flesh. The Catholic Church teaches that overcoming temptation is a normal way for the soul to strengthen in grace and virtue. The next title, Extraordinary Activity of the Devil. Any demonic activity that is considered more powerful than temptation is extraordinary. Over the years, numerous terms have been used in the field of exorcism and deliverance to describe the various ways in which the devil and demons can afflict people directly. When the new rite of exorcism was promulgated in 1998, the Conference of Italian Bishops asked the International Association of Exorcists to come up with a list of terms that could be used by everybody. The devil's extraordinary activity was lumped into 4 major areas: infestation, oppression, obsession, and demonic possession, which is very rare. Infestation is the presence of demonic activity in a location or object, such as haunted house. The various kinds of phenomena that can occur in this situation are vast and include unexplained sounds or noises, like mysterious footsteps, loud bangs, laughter, screams, the temperature of a room dropping, or the feeling of a cold wind with no discernible source, objects disappearing suddenly and materializing in other parts of the house, strange presences felt, the presence of offensive odors, interruption of electric current or the malfunction of electronic devices, pictures that mysteriously bang or fall off the wall, doors and windows that open and close on their own, dishes or other objects levitating and flying about the room. One exorcist described going to a house to bless a house and seeing mysterious blood-like spots appearing on various objects, including articles of clothing tucked away in drawers, and even a set of brand new bed sheets that were still sealed in plastic. In the same instance, a rosary that had been strung with ornate glass beads was found hanging on the back of a door, with all the beads mysteriously removed. Later that night, the beads were found crushed into a fine powder and placed into a neat little pile outside the house. In another instance, a woman baked a cake and placed it on the kitchen table. But when she re-entered the room, the cake was mysteriously high on top of the cupboard, even though no one else was in the house. Generally, say exorcists, such disturbances occur for a number of reasons, including the presence of a cursed object in the house, or the house itself being cursed, use of the location for occult activities such as seances, or for criminal activity of some kind, such as prostitution or drug dealing, performance of a satanic ritual on the premises, or gruesome murders or suicides having taken place there. Often, say exorcists, Manifestations are caused by a person being attacked by an evil presence rather than attributed to an evil spirit being attached to the house. Typically, instead of performing an exorcism, exorcists prefer to do a simple blessing and say a mass on the premises. The next title is oppression, also called physical attack. Oppression often takes the form of mysterious blows raining down on the individual or scratches inexplicably materializing on the body. Some people have had strange signs or even letters appear on their skin, while others claim to be pushed downstairs or out of bed by an invisible force. The Bible attests to the power of the devil to inflict physical infirmities. In the Gospel of Luke, for example, Jesus heals a woman who has been bowed over and deformed by a spirit of infirmity. Luke 13:10-16. Typically, this kind of direct attack is aimed at people who are closest to God, such as the saints, St. Catherine of Siena, 1347-1380, St. Teresa of Avila, 1515-1582, St. John Vianney, 1786-1859, and St. Gemma Galgana, 1878-1903, to name a few, were all the objects of demonic oppression at some point in their lives, as was St. Paul, whose thorn in the flesh, 2 Corinthians 12:7, is generally considered to have been caused by a demon. As in the book of Job, victims of this kind attack may also suffer in their work, health, or relationships. The purpose is to drive these people towards isolation and despair, so that they may turn their back on God. The next title, obsession. Obsession has also been called demonic temptation, and it involves an intense and persistent attack on the mind of the victim. Generally, these attacks include random and obsessive thoughts, though often absurd, are so intense that the victim is unable to free him or herself. Victims feel tormented by a fixation that completely dominates their thoughts. These thoughts can make the victim think he's going insane, which only compounds the feelings of sadness and desperation. As Italian exorcist Father Francesco Bamonti notes, some are thoughts and impulses that urge people to harm others. Some make people think that only a pact with the Satan can get them out of their troubles or bring them success. Some are thoughts to profane the Eucharist. Others are thoughts to drive one to suicide. Often the obsessions affect a person's dreams, and terrible nightmares are common. The next title is possession. See how similar they are: oppression, obsession, and possession, but they're all different. Excuse me, I've turned over too far. Possession. Excuse me a minute. Also known as involuntary possession. Demonic possession is by far the most peculiar activity of the devil, and also the rarest. Some exorcists believe they have never seen a full demonic possession, while others encounter the phenomenon with some frequency. Almost all exorcists are unanimous in their belief, however, that more people are becoming possessed today than in the recent past. In a demonic possession, the devil takes temporary control of a person's body, speaking and acting through it without the person's knowledge. This control, however, does not last indefinitely, but rather occurs only during moments of crisis, in which the victim enters a trance state, generally speaking after the crisis passes. The victim will not remember what transpired. Rare individuals will be conscious during the ordeal and will remember, and some of them remember a great deal, but it is also very rare. As a result of this loss of control, the individual is considered blameless for whatever happens. However, having a free will, they are responsible for their actions when they are not in the trance state. And so say theologians, demonic possession in no way exculpates them from guilt. In between their crisis moments, it is possible for victims to carry on as if nothing is wrong. This does not mean, however, that they are not affected by the demon. People who are possessed can keep undergoing influence of the demon in their mind, says another Italian exorcist. As the Holy Spirit acquaints one with divine things, such as good feelings, pleasant sensation, a state of physical well-being, a state of calm, inner peace, and also an intuition of things, an evil spirit through his ugliness can do the same thing, though in the opposite way, like agitation, anxiety, desperation, hate, or thoughts of suicide. During moments of crisis, the devil can manifest in various ways: bodily contortions that defy rational explanation, unnatural strength, knowledge of hidden things, or abilities to speak or understand foreign languages. In stronger cases, the demon will speak through the person, usually in an odd or unnatural voice that is full of rage and hatred. It is also possible for strange occurrences to happen at the homes of possessed individuals, such as weird animals appearing or disappearing. For instance, one 18-year-old girl was suddenly awakened one night by a slap across her face. Looking around, she saw that she was alone. However, as she searched the room, she noticed that misshapen bugs with antennae or wings missing, for example, began appearing on the walls. Frightened, she called out to her mother, who saw the bugs. The two then tried to kill them with a shoe, but they kept appearing on the walls as if out of thin air. It is important to note that in the case of demonic possession, say exorcists, the soul of the individual is not possessed, just the body. A great debate has raged among Christians about whether a person in a state of grace could also be possessed. According to the Catholic Church, the answer is yes. The lives of the saints bear witness to this, because the soul remains in a state of grace, while the body is taken over. The only exception would be when a person invites a possession to take place, such as during a satanic ritual or form of satanic ritual. In this case, says an Italian exorcist, the presence in the soul is completed, which means that the will of the person completely identifies with the demon, having given himself completely to him. In that case, the person becomes constantly possessed and is like a demon walking on the earth. I'm going to stop there. That's the end of that chapter, because I've no idea what the next one is, but it will be 5. So I'm just going to write on the book. It's the 26th of the 6th, 2606, 2023, and the time is 00:20. That's time for me to go to bed. That's late. Yeah, so I will do all what I need to do with that tomorrow. I'll tell you what the title of the next chapter is, but I'm not going on any further. And the title is Opening the Door. So it hasn't. Yeah, chapter 5, Opening the Door. My dear Wormwood, everything is clearly going very well. I'm especially glad to hear that the 2 new friends have now made him acquainted with their whole set. All these, as I find from the record office, are thoroughly reliable people, steady, consistent scoffers and worldlings who, without any spectacular crimes, are progressing quietly and comfortably towards our Father's house. C.S. Lewis, Screwtape Letters. And then John Milton, Paradise Lost. Confound the race of mankind in one root, and earth with hell, to mingle and involve, done all to spite the great Creator. So that is what we'll be looking at, Opening the Door. That's the title of chapter 5. So you'll be hearing from that later on another time. God bless. Thank you for listening. I'm sending you God's peace in abundance. May you always be happy and joyful in the Lord, and have a great week. And I will be uploading, but not as I normally do, because I've got loved ones and friends, and I'm going to be happy all week. I won't have time to do much recording at all. God bless you, and bye-bye.